Good evening. Hello. Hope you had a good week. Uh, it's been a beautiful week here. Weather-wise, we've had the spring mist coming in off the moor, and it's been lingering through the days, and we've had quite bright, crisp days. Um, and the mist has started in the morning, completely enveloping the house. And so, depending on whether you're standing with the sun behind you or alongside you, it ranges from kind of a bright silvery color through to just bathing everything in gold. And then as the heat has just taken the mist back a little bit, it's dropped down and just become just this thin layer out across the meadows towards the river. And then as it started to cool off again, it's begun to build and come rolling in waves. I mean, it's stunning. And so we've had a lovely week. It's been a great week. Um, Not without some challenges. And one of those this week has been that our little lad is going through another phase of teething. And so he's had ups and downs. He's had some lovely moments. He spent most of his morning one day this week singing to a snail that he'd found. I'm not sure the snail was quite so pleased as it was carried around the garden, having a toddler singing to it. But he took the snail to see all his favourite sights, and he sang about them as he went in a kind of joyful way. And then he found a place to put the snail, and having put it on a leaf to which it duly clung for grim death, he sang it a lullaby. But he has been back every day to make sure it's still there. And I'm sure that one of these days it's going to be taken on another trip around the garden. I'm not sure what he thinks about that. He's pretty much made as much joy out of the week as he could. But one afternoon, he woke up from his nap and his teeth were particularly sore. And he was just unhappy. That's the only way to describe it. He was just really unhappy. And so what he did, he began by making it clear that he wasn't happy where he was. He's figured out the phrase, "I don't like it," and so if he's displeased with something, he will look very earnestly at you and tell you that he doesn't like it. Doesn't always tell you what it is. So we were sitting in the bedroom where he'd had his nap, and he clambered up onto my shoulder and said, "I don't like it." So I asked him what he didn't like. He didn't say anything. He said, "I don't like it." And then he asked to go to the office, and we sometimes sit in the office and he draws. So, okay. So I picked him up, and he sort of tucked himself a bit more kind of tucked in than he normally is, a bit more sort of head pushed into my neck. But okay, off we go. So we walked into the office, and I was about to sit down. And as I was moving things so that I could sit and he could get to where the paper is on my desk, "I don't like it." "Oh, okay. Well, this is where you wanted to be. Bedroom. You want to go back to the bedroom?" "Don't like it." "Okay." So we went back to the bedroom. "Don't like it." And one room after the other, he went from room to room in the house. Every time we stopped, he just wasn't happy with that, until eventually I was standing in the music room with him. And generally in the music room, there's not many places to sit if you're holding a toddler. So we don't often go in there and sit down. And he sort of seemed fine with that. But we've recently put a swing chair in, and that was Liz's Christmas present. And I went to sit down. "I don't like it." And I was like, "Well, this is really strange." So I said to him again, "Well, what do you want?" "I don't like it." "Mama." He wanted his mama. So, okay, so up we went. Found Liz, who had also been having a nap, because a little bit like Bagpuss, which is a very English reference, I'm sorry, but a little bit like Bagpuss, when our little lad goes to sleep, everybody else in the house takes the moment to go to sleep. So we went to find his mama, and as he sort of clambered across from me to her, all of a sudden he turned and tried to clamber back again. "I don't like it." That seemed very strange. So Liz said to him, "Well, what is it you don't like?" And he'd obviously been trying to figure out how to say this, but eventually he said, "Don't like on my own. Don't like on my own."
And what it was that because his teeth hurt, he couldn't bear the idea that if we put him down, we might be going on with something else. He just wanted to cling to us. And even though any room we had been in, we would have been with him, we would have been sat with him or sat on the floor playing with him or alongside him because he's got a step stool that he stands on at my desk. Any separation from us was going to be a problem. I mean, in the moment, it was both adorable and also quite heartbreaking that he would think for a second that we would leave him if he stopped to play or he wasn't just clinging on. But he's little, and of course that's how his world works. Anyway, we made sure that he knew that we weren't going anywhere and that the two of us stayed with him for a while, and then he was never without us, not at all, for the next 24 hours. And bit by bit, his teeth have eased, and it's not so bad. But it got me thinking about one of the most extraordinary offers anybody was ever made. When Moses was leading Israel through the wilderness, the first meeting place that they had where people could go and meet with God was Moses' own tent. He stopped living in it and he took it and he pitched it right outside the camp where everybody could see it. And so the tent was out there, and the story goes that the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud would go and they would stand at the entrance to the tent when people had gathered in there. So they would go and they would gather in the tent, and the pillar would move and it would stand by the entrance of the tent, and anyone who wanted to meet God could go and be in that tent, and they would meet with God. And the Bible says that God met with Moses and also with Joshua and others face to face. That God would actually appear in the tent with them. And on one of those occasions, God is talking with Moses, and he asks Moses what Moses would like. Moses suddenly is faced with a choice that a lot of people might dream about, might think, wouldn't it be an incredible thing if all of a sudden I had laid out in front of me everything that I had ever dreamed of, everything that I ever wanted. Of course, Moses has experienced great wealth. He was raised as a child of Pharaoh. He's experienced a great freedom, great power. He's experienced great authority. He is at that point in time responsible for the leading and the care of an entire nation. But what Moses asks for is perhaps surprising. Because if you were to ask me, what do I want? I'm not sure that my first response would be a spiritual one. I'm not sure that it would. I used to have a friend who used to say, "Oh, I don't know why people enter the lottery. I mean, what on earth are they going to do with all the money?" And the answer is, I've never seen a lottery prize that I couldn't spend in a moment. I always have ideas. I love to window shop. Um, I remember years ago, dragging is probably too harsh a word, but only just dragging Liz around a rain-soaked Florence, just really excited to see everything through the shop windows. I mean, all the different things, and Liz just didn't want to even engage with it because she was soaking wet. She just wanted to get out of the rain. But it was our one shot at doing it. It was back when we used to do city breaks because we couldn't afford bigger holidays, and so we got into Florence on the train, and we were going to see it. Whistle stop tour, charging around Florence in the pouring rain. But I was perfectly happy to look through the windows at things that I would never ever be able to afford. I quite enjoy going to the showrooms of car manufacturers who sell cars. I'll never buy one. Absolutely, I never buy one. But the reality is, my first response to, well, what can I do for you? What could I give you? I'm not sure that I would respond in a spiritual way. Moses, though, perhaps as a result of the journey that he's been on, perhaps as a result of the responsibility that he has, his response is a spiritual one. And so tonight, I just want to read you Moses' response. Because as our little boy this week, as he articulated that in his need, what he wanted was not particularly to be in a particular room or to play with a particular toy or to, all he really was trying to do was make sure that wherever he was, we were, that he didn't end up somewhere with any separation from us. It reminded me of this, that Moses says to God. This is Exodus 33, starting at verse 12. Then Moses said to the Lord, look, you've said to me, bring up this people, but you've not let me know whom you're going to send with me. Yet you've said, I know you by name, and you have also found grace in my sight. So therefore I pray, if I have found grace in your sight, show me now your way, that I may know you, and that I may find grace in your sight, and consider that this nation is your people. So God said, my presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. So Moses replied, well, if your presence does not go with us, don't bring us up from here. For how will it be known that your people and I have found grace in your sight, unless you go with us? In this way we'll be separate. Your people and I will be different from all the other people that are upon the face of the earth. So God said to Moses, I will do this thing that you've spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. Then Moses said, please, Lord, show me your glory. If your presence doesn't go with us, don't bring us up from here. God, if you are not constantly with us in such a way that it transforms how we're seen, transforms how we're known, it changes us to such a way that it separates us out, it makes us distinctive. We can't hide it, we can't pretend it's not real, we can't change it in any way. God, if you are not with us, we don't want to go anywhere. We don't want to move anywhere. We don't want to be known for victories or known for power or known for authority or known for judgment or beauty or wealth or anything else. We want to be known for being distinctively a people who live with the abiding presence of God. Jesus tells us if we're going to enter the kingdom, we should come like a little child. And this week, as our little boy said, he didn't want to be on his own. As he clung on, and he didn't care where in the house we went or what activity we did, as long as he was as close to us as possible. It really challenged me about what is my priority. So often I'll ask God for the meeting of needs, for the transforming of circumstances, and I believe that you should do that. You can make your requests known to God with thanksgiving. But I also know that by almost any standard or measure that I can think of, I am extraordinarily blessed. I am provided for. I am kept. But what does my heart want? What is the number one thing that I desire? How do I want to be known? If I'm honest, there are days when I'm so focused on the stuff of life, and I'm so focused on the needs or the plans that I have, I'm really ready to ask God to bless my plans. When Moses here says, look, you've given me a plan and you promised you're going to do it. But for all that, I'm confident you're going to do what you promised you're going to do. God, my big question is, will you be there? Are you coming with us? Because if you're not coming with us, God, I don't care how good the plan is. I don't care how great the promise is. I want to be where you are. So if you're not coming too, I'm not going. Another story that I love is the story where Jacob wrestles with God and he says, I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. The reality is that the blessing that God gives Jacob, although he's going to walk with a limp for the rest of his days, he's going to be marked by the fact that he fought with God. The blessing that God gives him is described in this way, that he has found favor with God and with his fellow man. The second part is a wonderful blessing and a provision and a great thing that God might do for you. But the thing that really matters is he's found favor with God. Moses said, if I found grace in your sight, God, if you really are for me in the way that I believe you are, if you really do love me in the way that you say that you do, if you really are concerned about me, God, I don't care if the whole world sees it. In fact, God, I would prefer to be different and separate and to be marked out from everybody else. If no one else is coming with me, if no one else believes it, if everybody else chases the stuff, God, I want to be marked by your presence and by the fact that where you go, I am. So if you're not going, I'm not going. If you're not moving, I'm not moving. If you're not in it, I don't want it. You might offer me all the abundant wealth of the world. You might offer me all of the things that my heart has ever desired. You might offer me presence and prestige and all of those things. But Lord God, what I want is you. It's an old hymn that says, if I had Jesus, Jesus only. And it goes on and talks about all the other things you might have, but the one thing for which you should abandon all else is the person and the presence of Jesus. If your presence doesn't go with us. You know, there's been lots in the news these last few weeks about people that have made terrible choices. And it's really easy to get up on your high horse and condemn them for their terrible choices. It's human nature to always point at someone else who you have the benefit of hindsight. You can see the consequences. You can understand what they got wrong. And it's really easy to point the finger and say, oh, why did you? Look what they chose to do. You know what? I want to say something that's probably a little bit radical. It'll sound a little bit extreme. But every time you choose something that isn't the presence of God, every time you or I choose a priority that is not knowing him. You know, Moses says this, if I found grace in your sight, show me your way that I might know you. He doesn't just want to know that God is there. He wants to know him. He doesn't just want to know that God is present in an abstract sense. He wants to see what God is doing. He wants to be aware of God's plan and purpose in the moment. He wants to understand how God is responding to the circumstances. He wants to see what God has on his agenda. He wants to know him in the detail of what he does and who he is. If I'm honest, I've asked for a lot of stupid things in my life when all I really needed was to know the presence of God. Been thinking a lot, I guess you do when you have a little lad who's growing fast and discovering the world around him. I've been thinking a lot about my earliest childhood memories. And it's reminded me of a car journey. It's a quite short car journey between where we were doing church while we were on holiday down at my Tidkey, my grandfather. Tidkey's the Welsh for that, for those of you who don't know. My grandfather's home and the place where we were doing church one summer. And it was just a short journey back through some country lanes, down on the River Towie and up to the farm where we were staying. And I can't remember much about the church service. I can't remember who was preaching. I can't remember what they preached about. I was still quite little. But I remember having experienced the presence of God in such a way as his people were worshiping and were praising, that all the way back, sat in the back of the car in my child seat, and that tells you how young I was. All the way back through the lanes, I still had this abiding sense of the joy of the presence of God. This overwhelming sense that whatever else was going on, whatever else was happening, it made no difference. In that moment, I knew the presence of God and it overwhelmed me, and I've carried that with me my whole life. A joy that is unmatched. And I have a life full of joy and full of delight and full of wonder. I am blessed in so many ways, but I have never, other than in the presence of God, never other than when I have been fully focused on Him, experienced any joy, any wonder like that. And yet so often I find myself thinking about how can I meet some more trivial goal. And so if I can be honest with you for a moment, really kind of personal. What do I want? What do I really deep down want? As we, as a fellowship, Harvest Church, thinking about what does our next season look like? What's it going to be like when we get back to gathering together and start to do things again in the days that are ahead? And we have lots of ideas and lots of things that we love about what we were doing before, and lots of things that we have always said we'd love to do this as a church, and all of those things. Whatever comes next, whatever God has planned, I want my heart to be steadfast and focus to be singular and pure. God, I want to be where you are. God, if your presence doesn't go with me, I'm not going. God, if you're not going to do it, God, I want to see you. I want to know you. I want to experience the fullness of your presence as my entire focus. And Lord God, if that makes me look weird or different or cranky, if the world looks on and thinks he's completely abandoned everything else, it's not just my prayer for me. It's my prayer for everybody that I love. It's my prayer for everybody that I have an opportunity to engage with. It's my prayer for you tonight. You may have 1,000 other needs, and I believe God can meet them because your Heavenly Father knows what you need. But above all else, I want you to know the joy of the presence of the Lord, a joy that is not based in anything else but who He is. And the fact that if you will only ask Him, He is committed to be yours, your joy, your peace, your rest forever in every circumstance. There's nothing wrong with being excited about things. There's nothing wrong with having goals and dreams and visions. Moses has to get on with a job of looking after an entire nation on a pilgrimage. He has the day to day. He doesn't live in that tent anymore. He has to come and go. He has to deal with the leaders of the tribes and the families. He has to make sure that they're fed and that they're defended and all those other things that go with a pretty stressful job. But his request is not, God, help do all that. His request is, God, if your presence doesn't go with us, don't take us from here. Whatever this week brings, whatever you're facing, whilst I pray with just absolute sincerity that God brings you through it, the one thing that I know is more wonderful, more valuable, more precious, more irreplaceable than anything else is this: that God be with you and that you know the experience of His presence. He will bless you. Lord, keep you. Have a fantastic week. And God willing, we'll see you next Sunday. Good night.